Hey everybody. So in recent videos I have featured this netbook running Windows 11. If you watch those videos, you would probably noticed, well, you would have definitely noticed how modern Windows, like Windows 10 and Windows 11, runs so horribly slow on these Atom netbooks. This here is an Aspire 1532H. It's got the Intel Atom N450 CPU in it. I have 2 GB of RAM in it. It also got a 64 GB solid state drive in it. That way we could eliminate the hard disk drive as a bottleneck. So it's going to be solely based on that Atom CPU. And in a recent video, I compared this little netbook here running Windows Vista Service Pack 2 up against Windows 11 22H2, and of course the performance difference was night and day. So essentially with these netbooks, when it comes to Microsoft Windows, if you want to run Windows on one of these things, you got to use an old version of Windows like Windows Vista or Windows 7 that's no longer supported. But you wouldn't running into issues because of that. Because, well, for one thing, Microsoft no longer offers security patches for the OS, so you're left vulnerable. But also, software vendors oftentimes do not provide new versions of their software for an outdated or unsupported version of Windows. So let's see if there's a way we can get this netbook into a usable state. And today we're going to be installing Linux Mint on this netbook to give it a shot, see if it has any chance at all being something useful again. So here's a look at Linux Mint. This is actually version 21.1 Vera. And if we scroll down a little bit, you'll see there are 3 different versions of Linux Mint. You have the Cinnamon Edition, which is the most popular version. It is packed full of features. You have the Mate Edition, which has a more classic interface, uses fewer resources, runs faster than Cinnamon. And then there's the Xfce edition, which is a lightweight desktop environment. It doesn't support as many features as Cinnamon or Mate, but it's extremely stable and very light on resource usage. So you can probably imagine which version I chose for this netbook. Xfce. So that being said, I have Rufus currently writing this ISO image to a USB flash drive, and if you look up in the corner, I will provide you a card to a video where I go over Rufus, like the basics of Rufus and how to use it to write USB flash drives with stuff like, like Windows or Linux, all that good stuff. So anyways, it's just about to wrap up, and we will begin installation once it wraps up. I should mention that I did choose all default options with Rufus, and I used Rufus 3.21 to write this, which was the version I currently have on the system here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and insert our USB flash drive into the very tight USB port on this system. Comes to show these netbooks, like this one here for example, hardly ever got any use because, well, due to being so poor performing, they didn't get much use. Like this one here, I'm having to wipe the dust off of it. That's what you have when you have a wood stove. That being said, let's go ahead and start this thing up and attempt to boot off the flash drive. Oh, there is one that's hidden. I think it was F12. It's not seeing the flash drive. Try a different USB port. There it is. Okay, let's go ahead and let's see here. Start Linux Mint, because I don't see The different distributions, some of them offer a install. What we have OEM install, but it says for manufacturers. We ain't really mess with that. So we'll start Linux Mint. And I think once we get in, we'll be able to install it. This is actually my very first time messing with this Linux distro. Okay, so the screen is on. Oh, there we are. The backlight was out for a second. I have messed with Zorin OS in the past, and I'll probably be doing some future videos with Zorin, trying it out on some of my other systems I have here. And here we are at the desktop. I do actually have this plugged in Ethernet, so okay, yeah, as I was kind of suspecting, it will give you the option to install Linux Mint from within the OS GUI, which, I mean, this is pretty cool if you want to get a initial look at what's available, or how things will work. Yeah, so the driver for the trackpad's a little funky. So you can see we have what's sort of like a Windows Start menu here. Alright, so we'll actually go to install this. Not sure if it's actually running or not. Let's give it a second. Yeah, old netbooks is kind of taking its time. Okay, finally we're getting somewhere. Yeah, maybe the drivers will work a little better once we do an actual install. It's like, oh boy. It's like, will the lightest of Linux Mint distributions work on this thing? Or should I better say, would it perform at a usable state? Yeah, I'll go ahead and install those. So right now it looks like Windows Vista is in the lead for speed of installation. Alright, we're going to erase the disk and install Linux Mint. We'll just go with default options. We'll click install now, and we'll let this install. Keep in mind, when it erases the disk and installs, it's going to erase your existing partition. Telling you what's going to be formatted. Select our time zone. Of course, we have to keep in mind that Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows 11 failed to ask this important question. Well, that definitely took a while. That was easily a half hour to 40 minutes. Not being critical of this Linux distribution, it's just the fact that, of course, we're dealing with this old netbook, so you kind of get the idea. Alright, let's go ahead and restart. That way we can get a better idea of how Linux Mint Xfce runs on this. Okay, so there's the desktop. It's still loading. Yeah, the trackpad is still iffy. Like, you can't tap to click. Yeah, tap to click does not work. But anyway, also here's the little welcome screen. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that for future. So this is Linux Mint 21.1 Xfce 64-bit. Shows you how you can customize everything. And we're definitely going to take a look at Driver Manager. Let this look for drivers. For example, the trackpad. Maybe there's a better driver out there. We'll let that run in the background. Documentation, new features. Of course, there's a help section and a contribute. We're going to close that out. So yeah, are we going to say it's running slow? Well, of course it's going to run slow. It's a netbook. Does it run as slow as Windows 11? To be determined. I will say things are a little bit more responsive than Windows 11 and Windows 10. But I can say that when this thing was starting up, the disk activity indicator was not really doing much, so that SSD was like, give me something to do. So you can see here, just kind of a look at some of the built-in accessories, including Task Manager, which I'm pretty sure that processor, well, yeah, I'd say it's pretty close to being maxed out. Not pegged out 100%, but it's yeah. Alright, so let's make this a little bigger. 43% of our memory being used, which from previous videos, like for example Windows Vista on this thing, its sitting RAM was pretty close to this amount. However, it's using none of the swap at the moment. It's always better to make good use of the actual physical RAM versus the swap or virtual RAM, because even on a solid state drive, the swap will not be as fast as actual memory. We got over 170 processes going. CPU usage has come down a little bit. No drivers needed, it says. Okay, well, that just means that our trackpad is not going to fully function like it would in Windows. Like, for example, tap to click does not work. Let's see if it's a driver issue or if it's something else. Mouse and touchpad. Let's see here. It is seeing, of course, the trackpad. Okay, so it was not a driver issue. It was indeed, by default, they had tap to click turned off. Alright, so let's see here. Much better. Okay, so it wasn't a driver issue. Good. It's like, why would they have tap to click turned off by default? That's kind of weird to me. But, so you have, of course, there's favorites. I guess it's where you can pin your, yeah, so this is kind of taking a page out of the Microsoft Windows book about how newer Windows start menus are, like Windows 10, Windows 11 in particular. You have your pinned items, which are favorites in this distribution of Linux. It has some stuff already in there which you could add more to it, and you could, let's say, you could remove from favorites or whatever. We have recently used, and of course, Windows 11 start menu has that on the bottom, and then you have all applications. This is everything that's on the system. So it does come, I will say it does seem to come out of the box with a pretty good bit of stuff on here. At this point, I'm going to say that once everything's settled down, responsiveness is pretty good. So we have our solid state drive there, which is an older SSD from around 2014, back when SSDs were super expensive. That's why it's a small one. So it comes bundled with the Firefox web browser. So you can see we got Firefox. Let's go ahead and launch Firefox, why not? We're going to do a little bit of internet testing with this. So we have some music players and video players built in. We have LibreOffice. Okay, there's Firefox. Yep, LibreOffice. So you have an Office suite built right in. So, fresh out of the box, you can get up and running pretty quick with this. And of course, because it's Linux, some of the applications are not going to be what you're used to with Windows. But you can actually run Windows applications through Wine. I'm not going to do that in this video, but anyway, let's go ahead and try a few things. Let's see how YouTube works on this. You say its CPU usage is getting up there, and so is the memory a little bit. Still sitting at 0% for swap. It's going to probably start using some swap sooner or later. And yeah, that CPU is just wide open. I mean, wide slab open. So, for browsing the web, still going to be a bit on the slow side. Poor little netbook just can't quite do it. With Firefox, let's go ahead and try to pull up Q Computer Channel. You know what? Let's see how this thing plays a short. You can see the short does not even fully fit on the screen.
It's totally crazy just how nasty some people let their look at this monitor. That is disgusting. This is probably one of the filthiest monitors I've ever used. I mean, just the build-up on this thing is just unreal.
You can see the video is kind of like a slideshow. It is playing the sound.
Okay, so after a nasty one of paper towels, things looking a whole lot better. Still have work to do, but come on. You gotta keep your monitors clean. This monitor, by the way...
Yeah, that was a nasty monitor.
So, yeah. Keep your stuff clean, people.
Let's go back.
Nobody like...
So, as you can see, no matter what OS we have, it's still going to run in a crawl for certain things like internet browsing. And that little Atom N450 processor just cannot handle the modern web. And navigating on this 1024 by 600 screen, it's just kind of painful, to be honest with you. And see the trackpad's really funky. Not being critical of this build of Linux. I'll probably end up doing a future video of it on a different system. I may try it out on the Internet Explorer PC, which is an old socket 939 Athlon 64 dual core. It's just getting down to a crawl. I mean, CPU usage has come down, but yeah, seems like Firefox is just not. Yeah, Firefox isn't too happy right now. Let's try to run something. Like, for example, let's do the LibreOffice Writer. Say a word processor. That should be something pretty easy, shouldn't it? At least you would think. Okay. So, this word processor, the user layout kind of reminds me more of Office 2003. So if you prefer the layout of classic Microsoft Office from the time when some of my viewers were very young, then I guess this would be for you. This trackpad is just, I don't know if it's not the hardware, because in Windows things work okay. And I tested something else a while back. Oh yeah, it was Cloud Ready, which was a build of Chromium OS, which was like Chrome OS. And the touchpad, it was either this netbook or my ZG5 or ALA 150 netbook. The touchpad was really funky on it too. Now it's odd how the driver in here shows Alps touchpad, but I believe this netbook actually has a Synaptics touchpad. I Can't be 100% certain on that. It could be something different from the other netbook. I do believe. Oh yeah, I do believe the other one had. I do believe that Windows driver was a Synaptics driver. Could be wrong. I don't know. But what we're going to do is we're going to restart this thing and we're going to time its startup. So that will wrap up this video of Linux Mint Xfce on this thing. Because we are, I'd say, pretty much already getting the idea of how things are going to run on this thing. Alrighty, so I'm not going to time the shutdown, but I will time the boot up. And as I expect, shutdown will be very fast on this. I'll stop the stopwatch once the desktop is fully loaded. Okay. I'm going to say it's about 1 minute and 5 seconds. Yeah, the camera got out of focus there for a moment. But, yeah. Minute and 5 seconds. Now, I think I can't remember if we had some shortcuts on the desktop or not, but go back in the task manager. You can see the sitting memory is back at 34% with no swap space being used. So, I think it's a case of the core OS is decently light, but you got to do some stuff with this thing. It's going to get you frustrated real fast because anything modern, like browsing the web on today's web, that requires a lot more resources than it did back when this netbook was made, the power of this thing was well behind its time as it was. I mean, the core OS seems to run okay on it, which definitely is better than Windows 11 for sure. But I am going to say that, funny to think, Windows Vista Home Premium ran faster on this thing. But Windows Vista Home Premium is a much older OS, so even though Vista is highly known for being bloated, well, you have to consider that was a long time ago. And of course, Windows 11, Windows 10, much more bloated. So anyways, that wraps it up for this video. That's Linux Mint Xfce on this Aspire One netbook. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Well, everybody, that wraps it up for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to CubeComputer channel, and be sure to tick the bell. That way you get notified of new video posts. Also, I recommend following CubeComputer Company on Facebook. A link is in the video description. In addition to computer tech videos, I have a second channel, CubeCompMTDX. Links are available at the end of this video. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching and your support.